This submitted material outlines the archaeological discovery of 2,200-year-old preserved millet beer in a Chinese bronze jar, before shifting to describe the concurrent historical and cultural developments in Judea during that exact same time period. But the transition between the archaeological findings in China and the historical context of Judea abruptly fractures the narrative flow.
Yeah, it really does.
It's a huge jump. And, while the facts themselves are objectively fascinating, the overarching structure needs significant refinement to maximize the reader's experience.
Oh, for sure. Because right now, reading it, you're deeply immersed in this highly specific location.
Right.
Like you're in the dry weather of a Chinese tomb, and then you just leap straight into the Persian and Hellenistic rule of Judea.
It's honestly like watching a movie that just suddenly switches from a localized, tight mystery to a sweeping historical documentary.
Without a scene transition?
Exactly. Without any fade to black. It's just, wait, where are we now? So how can we remedy that? Because the main weakness here is that the text lacks any connective tissue bridging the geographic and thematic gap.
Yeah, the reader is just left entirely disoriented.
Because there's no signaling language, right?
None at all. There is zero signaling language to indicate why a piece detailing a garlic-shaped bronze spout in greenish-blue liquid in China suddenly shifts to the spiritual shifts of the Second Temple era in Jerusalem.
It's like the author has the map of this whole historical era in their head, but they forgot to actually draw the path for the reader.
Assumed knowledge versus guided discovery. Yeah, so the suggestion here is to implement a deliberative, transitional framing mechanism that explicitly guides the reader.
Meaning, we need to signal that this piece is an exploration of concurrent global histories.
Right, rather than a single geographic narrative. We have to train the reader on how to read the text.
Okay, I see. What are some concrete examples of how to do that?
Well, for one, you could add a transition sentence immediately following the dating of the Chinese tomb.
Okay, so right after we establish it's 2,200 years old.
Right. Something like, while these ancient brewers were sealing this bronze jar, halfway across the world, another profound historical transformation was taking place during this exact same time frame.
Oh, I love that. It's like it just pivots the camera across the globe.
Exactly. It validates the journey. Or, alternatively, you could establish this dual focus in the very first paragraph of the piece, so the reader expects the geographic jump right from the start.
Oh, framing the article as, a snapshot of global civilization in the 3rd century BCE.
Yeah, setting the itinerary before takeoff. If they know from the first sentence they're on a comparative journey, the jump isn't a shock at all.
It becomes a fulfilled promise. But moving to the next issue, the thematic purpose of juxtaposing these two distinct historical narratives remains completely unstated.
Which is a huge missed opportunity.
Totally. Because even with a smooth structural transition, the reader still needs to understand the purpose behind pairing these two specific stories.
Yeah, why these two events?
Right. Currently, the text presents the Chinese discovery and the Judean religious history as entirely isolated facts.
Yeah, they just happen to share a spot on the timeline.
Exactly. But I have to push back a little here. Is there a risk that trying to force a thematic connection between ancient Chinese beer and the Jewish Great Assembly might feel, contrived to the reader?
Well, that points right to the weakness. The piece fails to answer the so what of why these two histories exist in the same article.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, without a clear thesis explaining the relationship between the physical preservation of Chinese alcohol and the cultural preservation of Jewish identity under Alexander the Great, the overall impact feels disjointed and random.
It feels like two separate encyclopedia entries just sort of glued together.
Exactly. They're oil and water right now, so the suggestion is to weave a unified, overarching thematic thread throughout the piece to organically bind the two disparate halves together.
So it doesn't feel forced, we're uncovering the resonances that already exists.
Right. And as a concrete example, you could use the theme of preservation.
Oh, yeah.
You could draw an explicit conceptual parallel between the incredible physical preservation of the clear, unrefined ancient beer against the elements.
And the intangible preservation of Jewish identity via the Torah and the foundation of the Great Assembly against the cultural erosion of Hellenism.
Yes, it's a really strong parallel. You have a physical vessel protecting a liquid and a cultural vessel protecting a community.
That answers the so what. Perfect. Or, another example could be focusing on the theme of transformation.
Oh, contrasting the physical transformation of millet, wheat, and barley into fermented alcohol
with the societal transformation of Judea during the return to Zion and the building of the Second Temple.
That works beautifully too. It gives the reader a thematic lens to view both events, satisfying that psychological craving for patterns.
Okay, finally, a stark mismatch in descriptive depth between the two halves of the piece creates an uneven pacing for the reader.
Yeah, the tone shifts dramatically.
It really does. I mean, the first half details nearly 4 liters of clear, greenish-blue liquid and a garlic-shaped spout.
Very sensory, very tactile.
Right, but then the second half crams centuries of immense geopolitical shifts into a rapid summary. But I have to ask, wouldn't that broad, textbook-style summary be necessary to give the reader the full picture of the Judean era?
I get why you'd think that.
I mean, does it actually detract from the vividness of the piece?
Well, here's the weakness. The first section luxuriates in tangible, vivid details, whereas the second section abandons sensory description entirely to compress centuries of monumental Judean history into a rapid, zoomed-out summary.
You mean the shift from Persian to Hellenistic rule, Ezra, Nehemiah, and the roots of the Hasmonean revolt?
Yes, all of that. This whiplash in pacing makes the second half feel like a completely different genre of writing.
It's like going from an archaeological thriller to a high school textbook.
Exactly. Your brain is primed for tactile engagement, and then you're handed a timeline to memorize.
So the suggestion is to harmonize the level of detail by anchoring the Judean historical section in a specific, tangible touchstone that matches the vivid specificity of the bronze jar.
Yes, we have to bring the camera back down to the dirt. Like, for a concrete example, you could narrow the scope of the Judean history.
Okay.
Instead of summarizing the entire era up to the Hasmonean revolt, focus deeply on one specific vivid event or artifact from the 5th to 3rd century BCE that represents this cultural shift.
Right, keep it grounded.
Exactly. Or, as another concrete example, you could focus the Judean context on daily life or agriculture during the Second Temple period.
Oh, perhaps detailing what the Judeans were cultivating, drinking, or storing in their own vessels at the time, directly mirroring the description of the ancient Chinese millet beer.
Yes! Vividly describe the local wine presses carved into the limestone or the rough clay amphora used to store olive oil.
That is such a good idea. It ties it all back together physically, creating a perfect symmetry.
The reader absorbs the sweeping history, not through a dry summary, but through the tangible objects of daily life.
Okay, so to briefly recap, first, fix the jarring structural transition between China and Judea.
Right, implement a clear transitional sentence.
Second, weave a unifying theme, like preservation, to explain the juxtaposition.
Tie the physical preservation of the beer to the cultural preservation of Judean identity.
And third, balance the descriptive depth so both halves share the same vivid pacing.
Replace the broad historical summary of the Second Temple era with tangible, sensory details of daily life in Judea.
We want to warmly thank the listener for submitting this fascinating material. We invite you to revise the work using these structural and thematic strategies and submit it back in again for further feedback.